So welcome friends, what if Naruto was Mysterious Island of Paradise Naruto x Samui movie. Fourth collection of the Uzumaki clan, detailed and written by Uzumaki Hideo, 17th official chief historian of Uzushi Agakur, year of 1203 AC, in the years after the discovery of chakra. 15th passage of the final years of the 4th century of the Uzumaki clan, in the years since the clan's founding. Part 5 of 15th passage. An examination of Uzumaki exploration. The Uzumaki clan is world-renowned for its unparalleled skill and knowledge regarding all manner of seals, but almost completely unknown is the clan's vast experience in the exploration of undiscovered lands, far from the inhabited elemental nations. Indeed, as of the past century, considerable funds have been allocated toward the discovery and exploration of the unmapped regions of the world. While the sand shinobi of the wind country struggle to cope with the sheer size of their desert continent, and the lightning rogues of the far northern mountains straddle the edges of their impressive ranges, the brilliant people of the Uzumaki clan have pushed past their country boundaries and expanded from their small island nation into the vastness of the unexplored Kaiju Ocean. Known by locals of the Endless East as the Ghost Ocean, the Kaiju Ocean remains much a mystery. Several attempts by other nations to discover islands or other landmasses in this vast ocean, situated south of Demon Country and her collective colonies and thousands of kilometers away from the island of Uzushio, have yielded only indications of nothing but water and salt. Entire exploration teams, well equipped and supplied, have never been seen again, lost among the endless horizon of the Ghost Ocean. It is, for all intents and purposes, a dead sea. However, recent findings by the Uzumaki exploration teams paint a different picture. An island, approximately 1150 kilometers to the east of Moon Island, was discovered. It took the team months to find the island, with the loss of almost a dozen crew members, and just as long to return home, but the tales and trinkets they brought back were well worth the sacrifice. The team's head captain described a large island. He told of endless rainforests, thick enough to choke out the sunlight, along with an assortment of strange and wondrous wildlife and plant life, and beautiful beaches coasted by clear waters that shone under the high sun. In the 2 weeks the crew explored the island, they found no trace of civilization, no tools or monuments. No homes or artifacts, only the untamed jungle, untouched by human hands, essentially, a paradise unspoiled. But paradise was not sealing chakra, preservation seal failure, colonization efforts. What? That doesn't make any sense. The rest of the scroll is faded, baka. I can barely make out the rest of the passage, only a few words are visible. What about the other scrolls? You mean the ones that are burnt beyond recognition? Yeah, fat chance of getting anything useful from them. This was the best one we found from the ruins, all of the others were either torn to shreds or faded from the elements. Naruto sighed and sat next to his pink-haired teammate. So that's it? Yes, but it provided way more information than I thought, don't you see, Naruto? This could be the answer. Sakura yelled excitedly, pumping her fist into the air. Naruto eyed her skeptically, how? Well, your goal is to find the remnants of the Uzumaki, right? He nodded, then don't you understand? They supposedly discovered an uninhabited island far away from civilization, see this line? It's slightly faded, but it's still clear colonization efforts. This was written 50 years before the destruction of Uzushio. If Uzushio was already planning further expeditions to this newly discovered island at the time of its writing, don't you think they would have made considerable progress by the time the village was destroyed? 50 years is a long time, Naruto, and your clan was peerless in its brilliance. Do you think they made a home on this island? Sakura shrugged. It's definitely a possibility. I won't put it past them to establish some kind of colony on this island. Whether or not it was successful is hard to say. This is the most up-to-date history text we could find in the ruins. Between the time of this text being written and the destruction of Uzushio, a lot could have happened, who knows? They could have a full-fledged civilization on the island, unaware of the events of the past 90 years. She stretched her arms and barely stifled a yawn. The Kunoichi glanced at the clock, eyes widening as she witnessed the time. Kami, it's already midnight. I have to get up at 6 for the morning shift, let's call it a night, okay? Well, pick this up tomorrow night, maybe there's something we've missed. Naruto smiled at his best friend, sounds like a plan, Sakura-chan. He stood up, as did Sakura. He suppressed a chuckle as he once again noticed the difference in their height. Gone were the days he was the shortest of his team. At the age of 18, he now stood 5 inches taller than his female teammate, at a height of 5 feet and 10 inches. He received joy every time she was forced to look up to talk to him, though he would certainly not tell her. The last thing he needed was a punch to the jaw for insulting her rather short stature. He walked to the door, and she followed. Before touching the doorknob, he turned to her. Well, I guess this is good night, he said awkwardly, looking at the pink-haired beauty before him. She wore a pair of black shorts which ended mid-thigh, exposing to her long and toned legs. A red top covered her torso, which gave him an eyeful of exposed shoulder and her cleavage. Her light skin glistening in the low, artificial light of the apartment, she was beautiful to him years ago when he first met her at the academy, when they were only 8 years old. Now, 10 years later, she was still beautiful, but it was the beauty of a young woman, one who had stuck by him for so long, that captivated him instead of a childish crush. Yes, she replied shyly, her emerald eyes gazing to the side. At that, he believed his time was up and made to turn toward the door, but was stopped by a slight tugging on his sleeve. He had little time to react as her arms encircled his waist and her head rested against his shoulder. Naruto tensed for a brief moment, a terrible habit formed from his younger troubled years, but relaxed quick enough and wrapped his arms around her slim waist. He held her close, his chin resting on the top of her head, and enjoyed the warmth and comfort she provided. It ended too quickly for his liking, however, as she pulled away and the loss of her body pressed to him, left an immense sense of loneliness with a young blonde. The feeling quickly ceased as a pair of soft lips touched the corner of his mouth. It only lasted a few seconds, but the gesture left a deep blush covering his whisker-marked cheeks as she pulled away. He noticed a blush of her own dusting her cheeks as she smiled warmly at him. "Good night, Naruto." Nodding dumbly and a wide grin on his face, Naruto left her apartment, his heart beating 1,000,000 kilometers an hour, an affliction, unknown to Naruto, shared by his pink-haired teammate. When he took to the rooftops, framed by the bright moon, his mind wandered to thoughts of Sakura and the events of the past year. More than a year ago, he was in the middle of a brutal war, battling the forces of the two Uchiha, Obito and Madara. Obstacle after obstacle was thrown his way. The allied shinobi forces, a loose alliance of the 5 great shinobi nations, struggled against the onslaught of Kabuto's resurrected army of ninja. The situation seemed manageable until the legendary Uchiha, Madara, was brought back to the land of the living. Wave after wave of allied shinobi fell to his unbeatable prowess. Even the power of all the cages failed to match the supreme skill of the Uchiha. It was one of the few fights he never truly won. The fighting force of the reunited Team 7, touted as the second coming of the Sannin, was still not enough to defeat the Juggernaut Shinobi, adding in the Juubi, and the situation seemed unwinnable. However, through a complex series of events that left even Naruto's head spinning, and he was there. Madara was tricked into becoming a summoning conductor for the rabbit goddess Kagaya. Combined with the power of the Sage of Six Paths, Team 7 defeated the goddess, officially ending the war. Another battle, years in the making, also reached its conclusion. Though reunited with Team 7, Sasuke chose to rebel against the elemental nations one final time, in a battle that would no doubt become the stuff of legends. With valleys created and whole mountain ranges formed, the two rivals settled their endless fighting, both brought to the brink of death. Expended of all chakra and barely conscious, they ended the cycle of hatred. Sasuke surrendered to him, promising to never cause trouble for the elemental nations again. After weeks of recuperation and a full pardon, Sasuke left to travel the world. He never spoke of returning to Konoha, but promised to keep a lookout for trouble. Strangely, Naruto was the only one who saw him off. Sakura and Kakashi, still frosty toward the once traitorous Uchiha, elected to avoid the affair altogether, a decision Naruto understood and respected. It brought pain to his heart to see his friend leave, but Naruto knew it was for the best. Life in Konoha would not work for Sasuke. But the end of the war came a burning sensation to understand his ancestry. Seeing his undead father during the war sparked an interest in his family's history. He first tried researching his father's side of the family, but quickly hit a dead end. Being an orphan, Namikaze Minato had no family, and any chance of studying birth records were shattered due to Pain's attack on Konoha, which destroyed several archives. Despite his best efforts, nothing could be found, not even a hint of possible citizens related to his father. This dampened his spirits, but did not crush his drive. He soon turned to his mother's side of the family, the Uzumaki clan. Naruto knew his surname held respect, but only after doing some light research did he truly understand the power his mother's clan possessed in their heyday. Unmatched skill with seals, water techniques that could summon kilometer-wide whirlpools, and architecture which touched the heavens. It fascinated him. To be descended from a clan of such prestige made him proud. Minus the fact that they were pretty much wiped out some 40 years ago, it disheartened him to realize his only living family was scattered across the elemental nations, with last names changed to avoid persecution from those fearful of the Uzumaki's power. That was partly the reason Kumo and Kiri banded together to destroy the much smaller island nation. Though the Uzumaki had long maintained neutrality in mainland wars, aggressors against Konoha during the Second Shinobi War feared a military alliance between Konoha and its historic sister village, Uzushio. Deciding to act before such a thing could become reality, the two shinobi powers launched a full-scale assault on the village. Though the invading forces suffered massive casualties from the well-equipped defenders of the village, greater numbers eventually overwhelmed the smaller forces of Uzushio, and the village fell after a month of intense fighting. Most of the inhabitants were slaughtered, the few survivors scattered to the far corners of the world to avoid certain death. The village was turned to ruins, with most of the archives and records destroyed. Some of this damage was done by the Uzumaki themselves to avoid powerful jutsu and sealing techniques falling into the hands of the enemy. Vengeful Kumo and Kiri Ninja destroyed most of the records of Uzumaki history, leaving only the random scroller tattered pieces of parchment among the stone and wooden ruins of the once great village. Naruto knew well the devastation. A month ago, him and Sakura spent a week combing through the ruins of the village. Tears were brought to his eyes as he spotted skeletons of his fallen clanspeople and the empty ruins of his mother's home. Naruto was thankful for his teammates' company as he mourned the loss of a family he never knew. She comforted him, held him until his cries ceased, and whispered sweet songs into his ears as he drifted asleep. He was forever grateful for her presence that day. And she would never understand just how thankful he was to have her there. It was at that time a definite shift in their relationship became apparent, subtle things at first, such as brief hand-holding and longer hugs, but gradually led to more, kisses on the cheek, ones that sometimes touched the corners of his mouth, as what happened mere minutes ago. Sakura would lean against him, resting her head on his shoulder. Occasionally, he would rest his head in her lap. And she would play with his hair, twisting his blonde locks delicately between her lithe fingers. They would spend hours and hours at Team 7's official training ground, simply enjoying each other's company on a beautiful sunny day. Sometimes, they would even bring a picnic basket and he would eat bowl after bowl of fresh ramen. He nearly lost his footing as he came to a realization. Him and Sakura were doing couple stuff. It sounded like it, right? Couples hold hands, lean against each other, and have picnics, right? He was not an expert in relationships by a long shot, but even he understood the basics of a healthy romantic relationship, and this was sounding just like one. Did Sakura like him? He liked her for sure. Hell, he basically declared his undying love for her for the better part of 5 years when they were younger. Well, he did not know if he loved her the way his younger self boasted on a daily basis. He knew he had feelings for her, feelings that went beyond friendship. Could they be a couple? When he started this path to discover the Uzumaki's history, he did not want to go it alone. Without hesitation, Sakura joined him in his endeavor, offering her book smarts and work ethic to the daunting task of researching a subject that had faded from the history books. She never complained, helping him every step of the way. Always determined to find some shred of evidence to suggest the survival of his clan, he knew only of Karen, a member of Sasuke's former band of rogue nin, and she was not exactly the sanest person in the world. She was the type obsessed with freaky and weird experiments, and that was a definite no as far as Naruto was concerned. When Sakura once said that some Uzumaki believed in clan purity and only married inside the clan, she jokingly suggested him and Karen should sleep together to preserve the line of the Uzumaki clan. She made this joke when he was sipping on some soda, and the near-choking experience he received left her in a fit of giggles. Clan purity, he shuddered to think, call him radical. But maybe staying in the clan that way was not a great idea. His inner thoughts kept him distracted, and before long he found himself standing in front of the Hokage Tower. The village was asleep, with only street lights on at this time of night, but there was one person he knew would be up during this late hour, gazing to the very top of the tower, where the Hokage's office rested. He could make out the faint traces of light peeking through the curtain-covered window panels that viewed over the village. A grin made its way to his face. Oh, this was going to be good. Forming a hand sign, the blonde focused chakra into the air around him, though incomplete and underpowered compared to his father's legendary technique. His version of the famous oration worked well for short distances, and he never tired of using it. Literally, his vast reserves meant he could perform the technique as much as he wanted, though it was limited to seals placed on solid surfaces. He was not a sealing expert, so manufacturing a seal capable of holding so much power on a paper tag placed on a kunai was still above his skill set. With time and patience, he was certain he could replicate his father's technique. For now, however, he settled for his own bastardized version, feeling the pulse of his receiving seal high above reacting to his chakra probe. Naruto surged his chakra upward and smiled as the pulling sensation took hold on his body. What did space-time ninjutsu feel like? Well, imagine walking through a hallway barely wide enough for you to fit in. Now, imagine the walls surrounding you as streaks of blue and white light zooming by you at speeds barely perceivable to the human eye. The trick is to always face forward. Turning your head or changing the direction of your body could cause a disruptive in the intended pathway your chakra was creating through the world. Basically, a person could end up with a few limbs missing or part of their body trapped in a solid mass, such as a wall or the ground. It had never happened to him, even when he became distracted his first few times using the technique. But he did plow into a few trees and ended up far away from his intended target. The seal placed on a solid surface acted as a receiver or an anchor, which guided the user of the technique through the dangerous realm between space and time. Theoretically, he could use it without an anchor, but that was uncharted territory. He had neither the control nor the experience to achieve such a feat. Even his father never dared to use without an anchor seal, only the Nidaime Hokage could perform the technique to a varied range of success without an anchor, something Naruto had witnessed firsthand during the war. The distance was limited, the Nidaime admitted to him before vanishing to the afterlife. But provided a more practical solution as opposed to placing a seal on every surface or relying on kunai to mark an intended destination. For right now, he was content with his version. He felt his body exit out of the realm, and normal physics took hold on his body. His foot barely touched the hardwood floor of the office before a chair was being thrown his direction. Reacting quickly, he ducked, the chair sailed over his head just as last appendage, his arm, was exiting the realm. And he tucked his body into a bowl and rolled toward the desk. Before he collided with the desk, the young blonde sprung to his feet and threw his arms in the air in an overdramatic manner. Hearing the chair crash into the wall behind him, Naruto opened his mouth and cheerfully yelled, "Hey, Bachan." Staring at his fellow blonde, Naruto could understand why Iro-Senin had a major thing for her, pretty face, and, he grudgingly admitted, a smoking hot body, but currently that pretty face was set in a scowl, and her honey-colored eyes were glaring at him with murderous intent. If he were a lesser shinobi, he may have cowered under her vicious stare and killer intent, but he was Uzumaki Naruto. Nothing scared him, except an angry Sakura. One time, he made her really mad, and he ended up halfway to the mo. "Damn it, Gaki. I told you to stop doing that." The busty Hokage screamed, due to the fact she had pretty much demolished her chair in an attempt to hit him. Tsunade was standing up, her arms folded underneath her bust, and a look of great discontent marring her pretty facial features. He suppressed a chuckle, just like Sakura, he was taller than the Goddamn Hokage. Possessing a height at least 4 inches greater than that of the only female member of the Sannin, he chose not to comment, as she already looked a bit agitated with him. Scared he was not, though he did not desire a trip to the emergency room. Actually, Kurama could probably heal him, or laugh at his unfortunate circumstance and refuse to heal him. You never knew when dealing with the smartest fox. "Yeah, but I have to get some practice in. Plus it's awesome seeing the look on your face when I just pop out of thin air. Ah, priceless." Her glare intensified, and she gripped at her desk. It did not take a genius to realize what was about to happen, and Naruto quickly attempted to defuse the situation before more property damage occurred. "I mean, I won't do it again, promise. Cross my heart and hope to die, swear to Kami, swear to the log, and any other deity, good enough." Naruto, oh boy, her fingers were digging into the desk. "Ah, turn that frown upside down. Come on, Bachan. You're much too pretty to look so angry, lighten up." His fellow blonde blushed and released her death grip on the desk. Crisis averted, he thought cheerfully. "Well, aren't you a charmer?" she muttered. "Why are you here, Naruto? Can't you see I have work to do?" He glanced at the desk, a few papers were tossed here and there, but nothing matching the typical kilometer-high stacks of unattended paperwork he was used to seeing. What? Can't a loyal shinobi come to see what his Hokage is up to? Tsunade sighed. "It's almost 1 in the morning, Gaki, you shouldn't be up at this time." "True, but you shouldn't either," he countered. "Fine, let's agree we both shouldn't be up this late, but I have paperwork to do. Shizune's been hounding to get all of it done before the perverted scarecrow takes over. Won't be fair to leave him with a mess, or something like that. Looks like you have most of it done." She laughed and glanced at the desk. "Yeah, it only took about a week of non-stop work to get it done. Did you know there are 117 different kinds of permits for building in Konoha? I didn't until just yesterday, and there are hundreds of applications put through every month." Really? It sounded more complex than it should be, but who was he to question bureaucracy at its finest? "Take notes, Gaki, I'll be doing this paperwork someday. My dream is to live to see you panic when faced with mountains of dreaded paperwork." Naruto gulped. I could use a shadow clone." Tsunade laughed. "Do you trust your clones to do something right when you, the creator, don't want to do it yourself? They are basically an extension of yourself, Gaki, they act like you act and do what you would do, trust me, I've already tried. My clone went straight to the liquor cabinet. You ever get drunk with your own clone? It's a different experience. Here's a piece of advice. Don't challenge your own clone to a drinking contest, you both lose and get twice the hangover when it eventually disappears. Kami, that headache won't go away for days. Is it too late to become an Anbu? I hear they deal with less paperwork." "Much too late, Gaki. You think Haddock is going to let you interfere with his retirement plans? I give him 5 years before he steps down and just gives you the damn hat." Hess, not even Hokage and Hess already complaining about the paperwork. "Weak bastard," she grumbled, "but enough about that. Why are you up this late, Gaki? Surely it's not to just see me." The blush adorned his face. "Well, I just left Sakura's place." "Oh? Do tell, Gaki." A wicked grin spread across her face, and she plopped her elbows on the desk. Tsunade leaned forward a little too eagerly for his liking, giving him an eyeful of cleavage. "And just what were you doing at Sakura's this late?" Defiling my innocent student, Uzumaki." "What? No. Naruto sputtered, I was just, gah. Did you at least use protection? Wouldn't want to become a dad so young, right? She asked, giggling after seeing his horror-struck expressions. Relax, Gaki, I'm just messing with you, seriously, though, contraceptive jutsu, you should learn it, want me to show you the hand signs? I don't need, can we not have this conversation? Sakura and I were just reading through some of the scrolls we found at Yuzushio, no sex. This seemed to garner Tsunade's interest, and her playful look changed to a more thoughtful one, find anything useful? Something about an island in the middle of the Kaiju Ocean. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Really? The Ghost Sea? Yeah, I've heard of it. It's a well-known fact that it's pretty much an empty ocean, you should read more, Gaki. I did, and it turns out it might not be empty like everyone thinks. The most intact scroll we could read told of an island discovered by the Uzumaki 50 years prior to Yuzushio's destruction. Sakura thinks it's possible some Uzumaki lived on the island and avoided the massacre that happened in Yuzushio. Now that's really interesting, Tsunade commented, bring the scroll by when you two have finished with it, it sounds like something I need to read, an island in Kaiju. Naruto smiled, it would be nice to have a pair of fresh eyes examine the scroll, maybe she would see something they had missed, no problem, let us know what you think. Thanks, now, back to my original question. What are you doing here? To be honest, I don't want to go to bed, I wanted someone to talk with, and I knew Yao'd be the only one still up in this whole village, I just didn't expect to see you doing paperwork, I thought Yao'd be drinking. Oh, so you were coming to pick on an old drunk, eh Gaki? Well, I'll have you know that I haven't had a drop of sake all day. Naruto's eyes widened, that was a bold claim. Really? I have some self-control, Naruto, unlike someone who can't go a day without ramen. Let me guess, Shizune-chan cleared all your secret stashes. Tsunade groaned. Correct, Gaki, all of them, she replaced them with bottled water, I haven't had so much water since I was 12, screw those who say it tastes good, it's bland at best, give me sake or wine, or even a soda, but no. Shizune has me on this new health kick. Well, that's good, you really should cut back on the drinking, he took a step toward the desk, it really isn't. Creak. Both Naruto and Tsunade stared at the floorboard he stepped on, perplexed, Naruto shifted his weight on the piece of wood. Creak. Eh? What's this? He moved his foot and bent down to investigate, he squinted his eyes at the wooden plank and noticed it did not quite align with the other plank surrounding it, curious, he dug his fingernails underneath the sides of the floorboard and pried the piece of wood off the floor with little effort, his eyes widened as he viewed the contents of the secret compartment, oh. You gotta be kidding me. What is it? Tsunade asked, concerned. Naruto sighed and grabbed the object in the compartment, it's a fucking bottle of sake, he said, showing her the mentioned bottle, it appeared Shizune had missed a stash. Hey, I forgot about that stash. Tsunade announced cheerfully, gaining stars in her eyes as she stared at the precious bottle of alcohol, pass it here, Gaki. Don't you have work to do? You should be drinking. The paperwork can wait, I haven't had a sip all day, come on. She whined. Shizune-chan won't like this, Naruto said uncertainly. Ah, she won't know. A little sip won't hurt, seeing his conflicted expression, Tsunade pressed, how about we share a drink? You know, celebrate, the inauguration of the next Hokage. That's worthy of a toast, right Gaki? That's probably the worst excuse I've ever heard, Naruto deadpanned. Come on, live a little. Hey, if you drink with me, then you can cut me off before I really get wasted, besides, I've been working hard on this project of yours, unwind for once. Well, he never had alcohol before, honestly, it never appealed to him, seeing Hirosenin and Tsunade get shit-faced so many times really turned him off the idea, still, he was sort of curious, and it was better than leaving Tsunade to drink alone in her office, alright. Wahoo. The busty Hokage cheered, who knew someone could get so excited about a drink. But just a little, he insisted. Yeah, now give it here. He'll pour us some. From one of her desk drawers, she brought out a few saucers. Shizune-chan didn't think to take those, Naruto thought, passing the bottle reluctantly to her, he watched as she poured the sake into the saucers. Here you go, Gaki. A toast to perverted scarecrow-kun. Well, let's see how this goes. As per the agreement between Konoha and Kumo after the end of the Fourth Great Shinobi War, the two villages constantly maintained diplomatic ties, with open channels and communications to prevent any future conflicts. It was a deal agreed by all the great nations after the war, but Konoha and Kumo had a special relationship, being the undisputed superpowers of the elemental nations. It was vital that the two villages kept a cordial relationship, anything less could lead to war, and every nation agreed, from wind to water, that never again would the shinobi villages wage warfare, the cost was too great. Part of this recent surge of diplomacy included the permanent positioning of a minimum of 2 diplomats from each respective country, one a civilian of importance and the other a ninja of high rank. This was to ensure both sectors of the populace were represented fairly in the new diplomatic system. Civilian diplomats would hammer out trade deals and international laws. And ninja diplomats would work out border disputes and maintain communications between cages. The system was new, but it was already proven much more favorable than the old one, which entailed a messenger hawk to carry correspondence between governments. The hawks were dependable, but they lacked the ability to put emotion and sincerity behind a message between leaders. Diplomats could smooth over situations days before a messenger hawk even made it to a cage. Diplomats, both civilian and ninja, performed a tour of 6 months. After this time, a different diplomat would arrive, relieving the previous diplomat of their duty. Since the system was still in its infancy, previous diplomats returning to their posts in the same village had not been established, but it was not ruled out. The rotation system was to allow the diplomat to return to their home village and take a break from tedious diplomatic duties. Preventing conflict between villages required hard work, and only those specially skilled in diplomacy were chosen to fulfill this important role. This was the reason Samui had made the long trek from Kumo to Konoha. She had been personally chosen by the Reikage to hold the post of ninja diplomat in Konoha. This was partly due to the fact that she was one of the more level-headed ninja of her generation, and her important role in the Fourth Great Shinobi War, her elevation to the role, had been relatively last minute. Hence the reason she was currently traveling alone. The civilian diplomat arrived at Konoha a week ago. Her departure was delayed due to an emergency in the high mountains north of Kumo. A few civilians were killed by half a dozen rogue shinobi, and she was sent to deal with the problem. It turned out to be almost nothing. The rogue ninja were chunin level at best. No match for a high-level jounin of her caliber. She spent most of her time tracking them, which took about 3 days. The actual fighting lasted little more than 5 minutes, a testament to her skill as a kunoichi. After finishing her mission and a quick night's rest, Samui departed for Konoha, crossing the frozen tundras of Frost Country and the humid badlands of Hot Springs in record time. And then the damn endless forests of Fire Country. Call her biased, but she preferred the mountainous paths of her home country to the thick forests surrounding Konoha. Nevertheless, even her fast pace threatened to delay her arrival, and she skipped a night's rest to make up for lost time. The relief she felt as she glimpsed the great gates of Konoha, just as the sun was rising, temporarily made her forget the soreness of her shoulders and back, and the dull pain in her calves. The curvaceous blonde redoubled her speed, ignoring her soreness. And made it to the registration center at the gate in record time. She was so tired, she barely acknowledged the shinobi checking her papers, simply repeating yes over and over again. Honestly, he probably could have asked her to show him her breasts, and she would not have the strength to give him a very heated and well-deserved reply. However, the check-in went without a hitch, and the shinobi welcomed her to Konoha with a respectful bow. In her tired state, all she could muster was a nod, and made her way through the gates. The last time she had seen the village, it was still recovering from Akatsuki's destructive invasion. Most of the buildings were in ruins, and entire streets were destroyed. Now, it looked completely intact, save for a few buildings still undergoing construction. At this relatively early hour, not many civilians were up and around, though she spotted a few ninja darting across the maze of rooftops. It impressed her that Konoha could repair itself within such a short amount of time, but she had little urge to sightsee at the moment, right now. All she wished was a warm bed and good sleep, maybe a trip to the local hot springs to ale her sore back. That sounded great. First and foremost, however, she needed to check with the Hokage before she did anything else, and that included before sleep. Anything less would be considered rude, and she did not want to make a bad impression on her first day on the job, tired as she was. She had a duty to represent Kumo. Her pace was slow as she walked to the Hokage Tower. She was not familiar with the village, but the tower was easily the tallest building in the village and could be spotted from every corner of the sprawling settlement. Samui noticed a few cafes and shops that piqued her interest along the way. She made a mental note to visit them when she had the time, but right now she was too tired to care. All she wanted to do was get the pleasantries with the Hokage out of the way before heading to bed. Ah, she could picture it now, the soft and comfortable mattress and pillows of the luxurious diplomatic suites. It sounded so cool right now. She had just made it to the entrance of the building when she heard a very loud scream. Despite her exhaustion, she tensed up, adrenaline pumping through her body as she took a fighting stance. She glanced up at the tower. The scream came from up there, near the floor, with the large windows overlooking the village. It was certainly the Hokage's office, an assassination attempt. Samui wondered. She looked around and noticed no shinobi running to the tower. Indeed, they seemed to ignore it completely. How could they do that? Their Hokage was possibly in danger. Well, she wasn't one to sit around and do nothing. Pumping chakra into her tired feet, the busty kunoichi rocketed off the ground and aimed for the windows far above. Tanto in hand, she would face whatever threat was besieging the Hokage. Shizune hummed a happy tune as she made her way up the Hokage Tower, bright and early in the morning. The pretty raven-haired assistant bore a wide smile as she climbed each step. Why was she so happy? Well, she was always happy, but today was different. No, today she was not only happy, but in a celebratory mood. It took the best efforts on her part, but she finally got her master to sit down and perform her Hokage duties. It was hard work, but after removing every trace of sake from the Hokage Tower and her master's living quarters, Shizune finally managed to keep her away from drinking for at least a day. For most, not drinking for a day would not be much of a problem, but when dealing with an alcoholic it was an achievement. Some people assumed her master was terrible at paperwork. Not true, only when she had a few too many drinks did her master sort of wander from paperwork. Well, that's putting it mildly. Shizune once caught her master on the other side of the village, challenging every shinobi she could find to a boulder throwing contest, of course. The master was just a tad bit drunk and ended up causing considerable damage to the face of the Shadame on the Hokage mountain. It took Shizune hours to get her master back to the office, and even longer for the maintenance workers to fix the damage. It cost quite a pretty penny for the taxpayers, but no one really seemed to care. The only thing she heard about the incident was from a few shinobi bragging that their Hokage could throw a boulder all the way to the moon. Obviously, this was an exaggeration, but at least they were compliments rather than criticism. Anyway, nothing could dampen Shizune's mood. If all went well, the majority of paperwork would be done by the end of the day. Considering the pile's paperwork once reached the ceiling, that was quite an accomplishment, and Shizune would even allow her master to enjoy a sip or two of sake for her hard work, maybe even a trip to the hot springs. See? She could be fun, even if everyone at the office thought she was a slavadriver, including her master. As she approached the Hokage's office, she could see light peeking out from underneath the door. She frowned. Did her master stay here all night? Suddenly, Shizune felt a little regretful pushing her master so hard to do paperwork. She knew her master would be putting in some late nights, but to be in the office all night. Tsunade-sama needed a rest, no matter how much paperwork needed completion. Grabbing the doorknob, Shizune hoped that her master at least managed to get some sleep, however, as she opened the door, apologizing to her master became the farthest thing on Shizune's mind as she surveyed the scene in front of her. "Oh my kami," Shizune whispered, her eyes widening. The first thing she noticed was the empty bottle of sake on the floor. That alone already gave Shizune a nagging feeling that not much got done last night in the name of paperwork. However, that was not even close to being the most scandalous thing presented before her. The second thing she noticed was a shirtless Naruto snoozing peacefully on the floor. His spiky hair was strewn about in every direction, giving him an adorable look as he rested on the floor. That wasn't so bad. What was bad, however, was the fact that her master was currently snuggling into the chest of said cute young blonde. To make matters even worse, her master wasn't wearing her green jacket, or her grey robe, or even her bra. The only thing protecting her master's decency was Naruto's firm chest, which her breasts were pressed against. Barely daring to look further down, Shizune sighed in relief as she noticed her master still had her pants on. Thank goodness, nothing too inappropriate seemed to happen. Maybe just an unfortunate drunken escapade. But Naruto-kun didn't drink. Oh, no, please don't tell me Tsunade-sama has corrupted Naruto-kun. She thought dreadfully. She didn't know what to do. Wake them. She didn't want to embarrass them, but it was vital the situation was fixed before shinobi started arriving for mission reports. "Tsunade-sama. Naruto-kun?" she asked timidly. They didn't so much as move. She could still hear her master's light snoring. Gathering her nerve, she spoke louder. "Tsunade-sama. Naruto-kun." Her master didn't stir, but she heard Naruto groan at her loud voice. "Naruto-kun." She watched him stir slowly. He didn't open his eyes, but he looked like he was trying to sit up, which was a difficult thing considering her master was sleeping on his chest. Realizing he couldn't move, Naruto placed his hands on Tsunade's breast, causing Shizune to blush intensely and the still asleep Tsunade to moan, still with his eyes closed. The blonde shinobi gently pushed the sleeping Hokage off his chest. With shaky legs, Naruto stood up, hunched over slightly due to the blood rushing to his head dizzily. Shizune went forward to help him stand, but froze as she realized something she had previously missed. You see, when Tsunade was on Naruto's chest, she covered his waist and lower region. Shizune correctly saw that her master was still wearing pants, however, she failed to see the absence of Naruto's pants, or, more importantly, his lack of underwear. Naruto rubbed his tired eyes and groaned as the full force of a hangover hit him. Kami, was this what it felt like to drink? He swore he would never take another sip as long as he lived. Slowly opening his eyes and adjusting to the harsh lights of the office, his gaze landed on Shizune-chan. Hungover as he was, he didn't notice the deep blush on her face or her mortified expression. Instead, he simply smiled at his big sister figure and gave her a small wave. "Hey, Shizune-chan." Oddly, Shizune just stared at him. Wait, why were her eyes looking down at his waist? And why was it so breezy in here? Naruto-kun, naked, big penis. Shizune thought dumbly, unable to take her eyes away from his, she nearly fainted. Oh, this was too much. He was like a little brother to her. She remembered when he was 12 and absurdly adorable, now, he was, definitely a man. Oh Kami, the size. No, he was walking toward her. She could see his thing swing back and forth as he approached, she wasn't ready for this. She. Are you okay, Shizune-chan? Naruto asked with concern. Shizune did the only thing she could do, she screamed loudly. Ah. Naruto winced and grabbed his head in agony. Ah. My aching head, Naruto whimpered, nearly doubling over in pain. Why, Shizune-chan? Wah? Tsunade muttered, sitting up from the floor as the scream jarred her from her deep sleep. She rubbed her eyes and placed a hand on her head from the loud noise. Kami, who's yelling? Head hurt, Naruto groaned, his eyes screwed shut. Tsunade-sama. Naruto-kun. Shizune yelled, finally calming down, where are your clothes? Tsunade yawned. What are you talking about? The Hokage glanced down at her own chest and noticed her state of undress. Ah, I see what you mean. When the ringing in his ears finally stopped, Naruto opened his eyes and got a great look at a topless Tsunade. His eyes widened, a blush spread across his face, and a certain part of his lower anatomy reacted to the wondrous sight. Damn, those are some big tits. Rather than scream or pummel him to death, as Naruto assumed, the busty Hokage merely smiled and pointed at his lower region, feeling a bit breezy. Naruto? She asked playfully, a light blush dusting her cheeks. What? He glanced down and noticed his naked glory for all to behold. He tilted his head to the side. Now that's strange. Why am I naked? Better question, where's your robe? Tsunade shrugged, causing her breasts to jiggle. Beats me, complaining. Honestly? Not one damn bit. Good, cause I'm definitely not complaining about your current state of undress. How big is it, Gaki? It's fucking huge. Naruto blushed and looked to the side shyly. I've never measured. Can we please change the subject? Shizune screamed, covering her eyes with her hand. What happened last night? Naruto cocked his head to the side. I really don't remember. Yeah, beats me. Wait, Tsunade thought hard for a moment. She scrunched her face up in concentration. Something about a card game. Maybe. And loser takes off their clothes. Oh, yeah. Now I remember. Naruto yelled happily, loser had to. One of the large windows overlooking the village broke. At night, curtains covered the windows to give the office some privacy. Everyone turned to the window as the curtains were thrown to the floor and glass shattered everywhere, emerging from the outside, partially cloaked by one of the falling curtains, with Tanto in hand and posture set in a fighting stance. A kunoichi with shoulder-cut blonde hair and blue eyes landed gracefully on the floor. Time seemed to slow down as the occupants of the office stared at the newcomer with shock and confusion. The kunoichi was fair-skinned young woman of tall stature and a curvaceous figure. She wore a very low-cut outfit which displayed her sizable cleavage with mesh armor underneath. A short skirt and red handguards, high boots, and what appeared to be a modified Kumagakure flak jacket that only covered her stomach. Accurate description of outfit taken from Narutopedia. Okage-sama, I'm here to help. The kunoichi yelled, waving her tanto around threateningly. She seemed oblivious to the situation, her eyes darting around the room. Shizune did not recognize the kunoichi, neither did Tsunade. The two kunoichi stared at the newcomer with confused expressions. However, Naruto knew right away the identity of this person. In typical Naruto fashion, despite any circumstances, he could resist saying hello to a friend, giving her a cheerful wave. He yelled, hey, Samui-chan. What's up? Samui froze and turned her attention to Naruto. She blinked, her vision a little hazy due to her fatigue. Her eyes widened the moment she realized the person standing before her, Naruto. Wait, she lowered her tanto and surveyed a scene she was definitely not expecting, an assassin or some type of rogue shinobi, yes, but not this. Her eyes met the Hokage, whose breasts were currently exposed. She looked away out of respect, turning back to Naruto, but blushed when she caught a glimpse of his lower region. Her hasteful actions and fatigue dampened her normally attentive behavior, and in her haste, she initially failed to notice Naruto's lack of clothing, or complete lack of clothing, as the case seemed to be. Seeing no danger and refusing to look the blonde shinobi in the eye, Samui bowed, my apologies, Hokage-sama, I heard a scream and assumed the worst. Tsunade chuckled and reached behind her desk. She found her bra, a rather thin piece of black cloth which the Hokage placed over her generous bust. Small and tight as the bra was, it did little to cover her breasts, only barely keeping her nipples from view. The skimpy piece raised a few eyebrows from Shizune and Samui, while garnering quite a look of interest from Naruto. Tsunade glanced around. Looking for her grey robe, not spotting the robe in her general area, the Hokage shrugged and decided to live with just wearing her bra, for the moment, accepted. Kunoichi-san, now, if you don't mind, who are you? Samui bowed once more. Thank you, Hokage-sama. I am the ninja diplomat from Kumagakure, Samui. I apologize for my lateness, but I was given a last-minute mission just before I was due to leave, Samui said, an embarrassed blush dusting her cheeks. Tsunade waved off her worries. Not a problem, it should be me apologizing, surely you weren't expecting this. The busty Hokage scratched the back of her head sheepishly. Welcome to Konoha. Yeah, welcome to Konoha, Samui-chan. Naruto chimed in, I can't wait to show you around. Samui glanced once more at her fellow blonde, blushing fiercely as she struggled to ignore his nudity. Kami, was that thing even real? Yeah, sounds good, Naruto, a tour of your bedroom would be nice, I look forward to it. Great. Let's go. Naruto-kun. You're still not wearing clothes, Shizune said meekly, still covering her eyes. Oh, good point, I'll go home and change real quick. Before anyone in the room could say anything, the shinobi formed a hand sign and disappeared in a swirl of blue and white light. And to a normal body flicker, has to use his fancy Hurration, Tsunade muttered, well, best get some rest while you can, Samui-san, once the knucklehead gets back, you won't have a minute of peace. Rest was the farthest thing from Samui's mind after seeing just what the savior of the world was packing, but she nodded nonetheless and massaged her neck. Understood, Hokage-sama, where will I be staying during my time here? Oh, Shizune will escort you to your apartment, Shizune, if you would, Shizune. Her assistant was staring off into space, a dreamy look on her face. Shizune. Oh, great, well, give me a few minutes to get dressed, Samui-san, I'll escort you. Is she going to be okay? Samui asked, pointing at Shizune with concern. Yeah, shall be fine. Any questions about Konoha? Just one. Yes. Does Naruto normally walk around naked? Only after a night of drinking. Oh, okay, that's cool. Ino Yamanaka had been bored since the end of the Fourth Great War. Sure, she still took the occasional mission, which mainly involved protecting wealthy merchants or bringing medical help to remote villages within the borders of the Land of Fire, but with the end of the war and the subsequent alliance that followed, most of the hostilities that plagued the elemental nations for the better part of a century had disappeared almost overnight. Never before had the continent experienced such peaceful times. Ino definitely wasn't about to complain about peace, but peace for ninja meant boring missions and tedious tasks. The blonde Kunoichi loved helping and providing assistance to fellow citizens of the Land of Fire, but she daydreamed of the days when her old team wandered into dangerous territory to fight bandits or some rogue ninja, though the Fourth Great War had truly shown her the horrors of war. As she watched comrades fall to the monstrosity of Madara Uchiha's assault, a true ninja always sought action. Even though her younger self hardly embodied the traits of a strong Kunoichi, Ino was proud of how far she had come, and she could not help but feel her talents and skills were being wasted working the front counter of her parents' store. Currently, Ino was situated behind the front counter of the shop, leaning over the counter on her elbows and lazily reading some gossip magazine her mother bought. Outside, the heat was stifling, the air thick with warmth. As the hot Konoha sun bore down on the village, she sighed depressingly. A hot day meant less people outside shopping. And that meant less customers to make her boring shift go by faster. Honestly, 3 hours without a single person walking into the shop. Ino was about to go mad from the boredom. She glanced at the entrance, silently begging whatever deity existed for someone to enter the shop, anyone, anything to break the monotony. If she read the same article, 12 ways to make a man fall in love with you with only lipstick, she swore she was going to. Bing. Ino's eyes widened, a customer. She put on her brightest smile and faced the front door, happiness shining through her words as she spoke. Welcome to Yamanaka Flower Shop. How may I? And this is the Yamanaka Flower Shop, where you can find all sorts of cool flowers and plants. Pretty cool, huh, Samui-chan? Naruto asked excitedly as he entered the flower shop. Ino nearly groaned, what did that knucklehead want? Wait, Samui-chan. They do seem to have a large selection of various plants. The air conditioning feels so cool, it's hot outside. Naruto, how do you stand the heat? Samui asked, wiping some sweat from her forehead. I prefer it hot versus being cold. One time in Snow Country, I almost got frostbite on my left hand. Naruto scratched his head, thinking, well, I guess it would be called spring now, wonder what Koyuki-chan is doing right now. But the country has to have a winter, maybe the name changes with the seasons now that it isn't always snowing. Samui theorized. You know, I never really gave it much thought, I should visit if I ever get the chance. Koyuki-chan said I was always welcome to visit. Cool, maybe I could go. Excuse me. I'm right here. Ino yelled in annoyance, startling the two ninja from their conversation. Naruto blinked before smiling widely. Hey, Ino-chan. What's up? Hello, Samui said, giving her a small wave. Ino's eyebrow twitched. Why are you here, Naruto? The blonde in question gave her that damnable grin, the one that made every girl's heart melt, and she was no different as a blush dusted her cheeks. "Oh, I was just showing Samui-chan around Konoha. We've been having fun all day." He placed an arm around Samui's shoulder, bringing her close to his side, causing a blush to appear on the Kumo Kunoichi's face, something that did not go unnoticed by Ino. "Right, Samui-chan." The busty Kunoichi nodded shyly. "Hi, a lot of fun. Are these two on a date or something?" Ino wondered, watching Samui practically snuggle into Naruto, pushing her impressive bust against his side. "Those are huge. Kami, they might be bigger than even Tsunade's-sama's." Ino took stock of the young woman's attire. "Yaora from Kumo, Samui-san." "Hi, I'm the new diplomat from Kumo. I just arrived early this morning, and Naruto agreed to help familiarize me with Konoha," she answered, still pressed against Naruto. "I have to say, you have a lovely flower shop." Naruto said your family had the best floral shop in the village, and that you were an excellent kunoichi. Ino blushed, glancing at Naruto. He said that. "Yeah, Ino-chan is awesome. She can defeat an opponent with just one move, it's amazing." Ino smiled at his praise. "That's kind, Naruto, but it didn't work on you when we sparred a few months ago." "Well, we all know I'm a special case, right Ino-chan? My mind's practically rock solid." She giggled. "If you call a labyrinth of pipes and tunnels rock solid, then I guess you're right. Still, I would have had you if your tenant didn't scare the living crap out of me toward the end." Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. "Yeah, Kurama felt kinda bad for scaring you." "Really?" He didn't exactly come out and say it, but I could sense maybe a tiny bit of remorse, or whatever constitutes as remorse for a massive chakra shaped as a fox. "It's hard to tell. Hess a real smartass." "Oh, sorry Kurama," he apologized quickly as he felt the beast stir from within the seal. "Touchy fox. Anyway, Samui-chan and I really need to get going. I have so many things to show her." He yelled excitedly, grabbing the blonde Kumo Kunoichi by the hand and running to the door. He threw a hand back in a wave. "See ya, Ino-chan." "Goodbye, Ino-san," Samui said calmly, being pulled through the door by the excitable shinobi. Bye guys." Ino said hurriedly, watching the duo leave with amused eyes. Without Naruto, the store once again returned to its previously boring state, leaving Ino to her thoughts. Her mind dwelled on the apparent closeness of Naruto and Samui. Naruto, being his normal oblivious and lovable self, most likely did not realize the implications of the gestures he was making towards Samui. Such as wrapping his arms around her or holding her hand. The blonde knucklehead probably was just trying to be friendly, as he always attempted to be, without realizing that any passerby would incorrectly assume the two were in some sort of relationship. Hell, if Ino didn't know any better, she would have assumed the same thing. Samui, on the other hand, with all her blushing and snuggling gestures, definitely liked Naruto more than just a friend. Naruto may have been blind to the fact, but it was clear Samui was smitten with the blonde shinobi. Ino wished her all the luck in the world. Naruto could be dense, incredibly so. And Ino doubted he would get the message. Even if Samui dragged him to the nearest love motel and ravaged him until the bed broke, Naruto would probably think the busty Kunoichi wanted to show him a game or something, luring him to the bed and springing the trap. Samui would have her way with him. Naruto would finally figure out what was going on. And then proceed to screw her into unconsciousness. Why, with his legendary stamina and endurance and ungodly chakra reserves, Ino was certain more than just the bed would be broken and Samui would be reduced to an incoherent trembling mess as Naruto thrust his big "Whoa, calm down, girl." Ino blushed, her dirty thought sending a shiver up her spine. "Don't think of Naruto like that, don't think of Naruto like that, don't think of Naruto, naked, in bed, gah." Her thoughts betrayed her. Aside from her perverted thoughts, Ino idly wondered what Sakura would think about this. She knew her best friend harbored seriously feelings for the knucklehead, and the news of a foreign kunoichi looking to steal his heart would not sit well with her. Ino could definitely see why women were becoming more interested in her fellow blonde. Gone were the days when everyone towered over Naruto. Now, he was one of the tallest of their generation. During the years of intense training, Naruto had filled out considerably, with toned muscles and drooling good looks that made women go wild with desire. It also helped that he was quite possibly the most powerful shinobi on the planet and the savior of the world. That certainly only added to his charm. And his positive and cheery personality could make anyone smile. He was the epitome of dateable, Konoha's most sought after and eligible bachelor. If Forehead hadn't made such a blatant claim on the sexy shinobi, Ino might have considered asking him out, but I can't do that, Sakura would be pissed, and I won't want to betray her. The blonde beauty sighed, picking up her magazine once more. Better tell her about Samui when my shift's done, she should know someone else is after Naruto's heart. Another bowl, old man. Coming right up, Naruto. Extra pork and heavy on the noodles. No problem, Naruto, here you go. Thanks, A.M. Nichan. Naruto dug into his new bowl, savoring the delicious flavor of his favorite ramen at his favorite restaurant. Isn't this the best, Samui-chan? I Samui replied meekly, staring at him with disbelieving eyes as the blonde Jinchuriki proceeded to demolish yet another bowl of steaming hot ramen. She glanced at her own bowl, only half eaten, self-consciously. Samui was never one for big meals, one bowl of ramen was too much for her small stomach. Which made her feel more than a little intimidated when Naruto could easily put away a dozen bowls. She took in his muscular figure and wondered just how he could stay in shape after intaking so many calories. He must work out about 5 hours a day, either that or he has the most crazy metabolism. Oh, that must be a record. She thought as she watched him finish another bowl in about 15 seconds. It'll just chalk it up as a Jinchuriki quirk. Kurabi-sensei has his rapping, Yujito Nisan had her obsession with milk, and Naruto likes ramen a lot. Actually, when I really think about it, Naruto's quirk is pretty mild, though all this ramen must cost him a fortune. Do you need another bowl, Samui-san? I believe yours has gone cold, the kind waitress, AM, asked her, snapping Samui from her inner musings. Samui looked at her own bowl, it was rather lukewarm, still delicious enough to eat, but her stomach couldn't handle another bite, so it appears, no, thank you, AM-san, I am quite full. AM simply smiled. No problem, let me take your bowl. After having Naruto as our #1 customer for so long, it's strange seeing someone with a normal appetite, AM commented, taking the half-empty bowl. Samui couldn't help but smile herself, glancing at the mentioned shinobi with amused eyes. I imagine so, does he always eat this much? Oh dear, no, normally, had already be on his 20th bowl. This is a rather slow-paced meal for him, AM giggled. He usually slows down when he has company, consider it the ultimate compliment, he values your company more than a good bowl of ramen. Samui blushed lightly. Well, that's cool. So, since Hess busy eating, AM leaned over the counter, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Are you two on a date or something? That light blush? Yeah, it just intensified, nearly coating her cheeks. What? The beautiful Kumo Kunoichi stuttered out. AM's smile was positively evil. Come on, I see the glances, you like him, right? Before Samui could manage a reply, the pretty brunette pressed on, well, you better make your move soon, you have more than just a little competition, AM whispered, however it was unnecessary, as Naruto was currently busy finishing his 16th bowl of ramen, with her father on standby to provide another fresh bowl when needed. I don't really know him well, she admitted. So? It's obvious there is something between you two, trust me, Naruto doesn't bring a girl to the stand unless he feels something for her. How'd you two meet anyway? Not in the most kindest of circumstances, my team and I were on the hunt for Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto stood in our way. We didn't know at the time he was the man who killed Pain, so we just treated him as a nuisance in the way of our mission. Sasuke Uchiha. AM gained a rather angry look, how I dislike that boy, he caused nothing but trouble for Naruto, I'm glad he exiled himself from the village. Samui nodded, from her first impressions, Sasuke Uchiha did not seem like the most friendly of people, especially considering her tried to capture her own sensei. It amazed her that someone as friendly and kind as Naruto was able to stand the man. From what Samui had heard, Naruto was possibly the only one in the entire village, or possibly the entire elemental nations who viewed the last Uchiha in a positive way. She heard the rants from her Raikage nearly every day. If it wasn't for Naruto, Sasuke Uchiha would be in a prison cell, or even in a shallow grave. But we got to know each other briefly after he helped release my brother and I from imprisonment. She blushed, unable to finish her sentence. AM grinned. Go on. He carried me, I was weakened from the dampening qualities of my imprisonment, so he voluntarily carried me to Kumo. We talked the whole way back, not once did he mention the part he played in ending the war. I didn't find out until we arrived in Kumo that he nearly single-handedly saved the world. When I questioned him, he merely waved it off. And kept concerning himself with my chakra exhaustion. Hess, well, unique, but in a good way. She glanced at him, a fond smile making its way onto her pretty face as she watched him devour another bowl, a very good way. Yeah, you two would definitely make a great couple. Samui quickly turned to the brunette. Huh? The couple, AM repeated, you two would make a great couple, that settles it. I think that would be moving a little too fast. AM shook her head. No, it won't, you like him, right? Be honest. If you mean as in she fumbled with the words before sighing, fine, I like him, there, happy. More than you know. AM announced with a grin, now, follow my lead, act like you don't know anything. But I don't know anything. Perfect. AM turned her attention to Naruto, who had just finished another bowl, Naruto-kun. Naruto, who was just reaching for a fresh bowl, paused and turned to AM with a wide grin. Yes, AM Nichan. Did you know Samui-san is a huge fan of the Ninja Heart movies? She asked innocently, planting the seed of her grand plan. Really? Naruto set down his chopsticks and looked at Samui questioningly, why didn't you say so, Samui-chan? There's a theater just a few blocks away. Samui glanced at AM, finally understanding what the waitress was doing. Ah, I didn't think you would be a fan. To be honest, I've never seen one of the Ninja Heart movies, Naruto admitted, before gaining an excited look, but that doesn't mean I'm not open to seeing one. Come on. It'll take you right now. Samui had never seen the Ninja Heart movies either, hell, she didn't even know what they were about, but considering the fact that AM had just given her a chance to sit right next to Naruto in a dark theater, where she could lean against him and share popcorn with him, with possible opportunities to do more, she wasn't about to argue. Sounds great, she replied. Smiling to herself as Naruto quickly grabbed her hand, the 20th time that day, and gently guided her out of the ramen stand. AM gave Samui a sly wink as she watched the two exited the ramen stand, feeling satisfied that her mission was accomplished. She seems like a nice girl, her father, Tucci, commented soon after the two left. AM nodded happily. Yes, I think she'd be good for Naruto. Oh, was that what you two were talking about? Tucci asked, taking an empty bowl from the counter. Something like that, she just needed a little push, aren't they adorable together? AM gushed. Tucci shook his head, smiling. And here I thought Naruto liked his teammate, Sakura, I think her name was. Well, she had her chance with Naruto, he deserves someone who didn't make his childhood a living hell, AM said icily. Tucci sighed. AM, you really need to forgive her, Naruto has, and she's different now, yeah I've seen them, it's a completely different situation from their younger years. You weren't the one that spent hours trying to cheer him up after she rejected him, AM countered, he was devastated every time, she's just like that Ichiha, always causing him pain, he needs someone who isn't a reminder of his hard past. Whatever you say, AM, Tucci glanced fondly at Naruto's reserved seat, he certainly has come a long way, hasn't he? Yes, and we always knew he'd get there, he deserves it, everything, including a woman who will be there for him. You're just like an older sister, meddling in his love life. AM smiled widely. No matter how old he gets, he'll always be my adorable Itato. And Miki-san, make sure to clean his wound thoroughly. Hi, Sakura-senpai. Hara-san, apply your chakra below the surface of the skin, not just the first layer. Hi, Sakura-senpai. And Kiri-san Sakura scrutinized the amount of chakra the nurse was applying to a damaged chakra point, perfect, keep distributing the same amount to encourage the chakra system to self-heal. Thank you, senpai, I will. Sakura lingered for a while longer, watching for any mistake, before leaving when she became sure the three had their respective situations managed. With a tired sigh, she walked down the hallway, her small heels clicking with each step, and made her way toward her office. She wore a standard white medical coat, which covered a red sleeveless shirt, and a black miniskirt. Her hair, which normally just went past her shoulders, was put up in a ponytail, held back by her Konoha headband. Her posture and clothing created an air of professionalism and confidence, befitting of Konoha Hospital's most skilled medical nin, and the manner of which the numerous staff sought her guidance indicated respect at the highest levels for one of the most powerful kunoichi in the world. Once she arrived at her office, she immediately noticed the door slightly ajar. Frowning, she extended her chakra, a technique Naruto had taught her, and noticeably relaxed as she recognized the chakra signature within her office. With a small smile on her face, the pincat lightly pushed the door open and calmly acknowledged the person rather rudely sitting in her chair. Hello, Ino. The beautiful blonde, who had been staring at a picture on her desk, looked up and smiled brightly at her. Hi Sakura. Been busy? Sakura shut the door behind her and slid off her medical coat. She placed it on the coat rack near the door. She crossed her arms and pouted at her friend. Yes, very much so, we're short-staffed because 4 of my nurses called in sick all at once, what a coincidence, huh? Ino giggled. Indeed, it must also be a coincidence that Abundant Attire is having a 50% off sale the exact same day these girls called in. Sakura's eyes widened. Those bitches and 50% off? She asked in disbelief. Yep, and don't worry, forehead, Ino lifted about 6 bags from behind the desk, I bought enough for both of us, including a nice red skirt I think would look wonderful on you. Oh, well, thanks, I owe you one, piggy. Ino grinned. Yes, you do, but that's not why I'm here, Sakura. Oh, really? What is it, then? It's not often you come to the hospital, so this must be pretty important. Ino smiled nervously, running a hand through her hair. Ah, well, you see, never mind. Sakura chuckled. Never mind. Come on, piggy, what is it, gossip? Sort of. Okay, you're being rather vague, so I'll assume it's not something good. Sakura's eyes widened. Is it about Naruto? Is he hurt? Did something happen? It does involve Naruto, ugh. Ino grunted as she was lifted off her feet by the strong pincat. Before Ino could even clarify, she found herself roughly shaken by a worried Sakura. Did someone try to kill him? Who was it? Tell me right now so I can rip their heads off. She shook Ino repeatedly. Tell me, Ino. I'm so dizzy, I think I'm gonna hurt. Ino thought as her friend shook her, "Hess not, hurt." She managed to get out. A second later, she found herself dropped back in her seat, gasping for air and steadying herself. Thank you, wow, the room's spinning. Sorry, Ino, I got a little carried away," Sakura said sheepishly, scratching the back of her head, "but seriously, what is it you have to tell me?" "Can I catch my breath for 1 second? You nearly gave me whiplash." "You're too strong," Ino sighed in relief as the room stopped spinning and her heartbeat normalized. "Okay, deep breaths." Sakura waited patiently. "You good, now?" Ino nodded happily. "Yep. Good, so what did you want to tell me?" "Oh, yeah, about that." Ino looked at the picture on Sakura's desk again. "That's a very nice picture of you and Naruto, it's almost looks like you two are a couple." Sakura blushed. We're not a couple, Ino," Sakura had to admit, the picture did indeed make them look like a couple. Naruto and her sat on a picnic blanket, pushed closer together so the camera could capture both of them, with their cheeks touching and hands on each other's arms, they both looked happy, their eyes shining in the afternoon Konoha sun, and broad smiles on their faces. She had kept that picture on her desk because it made her feel, well, happy every time she looked at it. Ino looked at her skeptically. "So you don't want to be his girlfriend?" "Ah, well. And you don't like him?" "That's my best friend and my teammate." "Oh, so you don't like him? Thank goodness. This makes things a lot easier." Sakura looked at her questioningly. "Makes what easier?" The smile Ino gave her was downright devious. "Naruto is escorting the new Kumo diplomat around Konoha, and she just so happens to be a hot girl around his age." Sakura froze, processing her friend's words, before shaking her head slowly. "That doesn't sound bad, it's nice of Naruto to show her around." "Oh, but that isn't everything, Sakura, you see, this particular Kunoichi likes Naruto, did I mention she's hot? And Hess taking her everywhere around Konoha, from restaurants to stores, what does that sound like to you?" Naruto being Naruto. They were all over each other, leaning against each other and holding hands. Sakura clenched her fists. "Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah, they came into my parents' shop, Naruto wanted to show her the flowers, I think her name was Samui." "Samui, that sounds familiar." "Wait," Sakura thought about it hard, "she's from Kumo, right? Does she have big breasts?" she asked, dreading Ino's reply. Ino nodded. "So you know her?" "Of course I know her, Naruto pretty much carried her halfway across the elemental nations, she was touchy-feely with him then," and now Sakura was already imagining a rather dismal picture, Naruto, being the friendly and kind person he was, hanging out with the buxom blonde from Kumo, she imagined Samui pressing herself against him, trying to seduce him. With Naruto desperately trying to find a polite way to turn her down, but she wouldn't take no for an answer, and then, Sakura shuddered to think, no, it wasn't right, Naruto shouldn't be with a foreign Kunoichi, he should be with her. "Have you seen her bust? Kami, I think they're bigger than Tsunade's Samas. What do you think, Sakura?" "Sakura. You okay?" Ino looked at her friend with concern, she shivered, "What's with this killing intent?" "Sakura. You okay?" "I'm taking the rest of the day off." "What? Why?" "No reason in particular." Sakura calmly walked over to the coat rack, retrieved her medical coat and slid it across her shoulders. "Let the rest of the staff know for me, okay?" Ino was worried. "You're not going to create an international incident with a Kumo diplomat, are you, Sakura?" Sakura gave her an innocent smile, one which Ino could easily see through. "Of course not, Ino, you think so little of me, I just need to have a few words with Naruto and maybe Samui, do you know where they are at?" Ino debated not saying anything, but ultimately decided to help her friend. "They didn't tell me for sure, but try Ichiricus, Naruto loves that place, doesn't he?" Good idea, thanks, Ino, see you later." A breeze entered the room and Sakura was gone in the blink of an eye. Ino eyed the now vacant spot before sighing, "I got a feeling I should have told her." The fifth installment of the Ninja Heart series, Kunoichi's Love, debuted a week ago to rave reviews. The popular action romance series centered on the life of a skilled Kunoichi, Kimi Usagari, fighting to protect her village, and her civilian love interest, Ichika. Kunoichi's Love detailed Kimi's attempt to rescue her lover from the evil clutches of a rogue Kunoichi, Asagi. Combined with action sequences, plenty of gore, sex and romance, the movie became a hit with youths everywhere, both civilian and ninja alike, and Naruto and Samui were no different. "This is a good movie," Naruto whispered to Samui. They were seated near the front, right next to each other, in a theater packed with excited fans. "Kimi-chan has some awesome moves." Samui nodded, fully agreeing with her fellow blonde, even if all the action scenes were pretty much the work of special effects. "Yes, it is, can you pass the popcorn?" "Sure, here you go." He handed the bucket of popcorn to her, and Samui noted with amusement that Naruto had devoured a good portion of the popcorn. Thank you, their date, or whatever it was called, was going well. After AM told Naruto about her supposed interest in the Ninja Heart series, Naruto had been adamant that he take her to the new movie. Samui was skeptical of the movie due to the rather cheesy name, but quickly found herself engrossed with the plot, as did Naruto, departing from most action movies. It was a woman rescuing her love, rather than the other way around. The romance between the two seemed believable, albeit unfortunate due to Ichika's inability to use chakra, but there was obviously great chemistry between the two main characters. The anger Kimi felt upon discovering Ichika's kidnapping seemed so real and heart-wrenching that Samui couldn't help but be sympathetic. If someone had taken her lover from her, you better believe she would go to the ends of the earth to find him and kill his abductor. Currently, Kimi was in the process of slaughtering hordes of rogue nin, swinging two katanas around skillfully in an outfit that barely covered certain areas. Samui understood fan service, but was it really necessary for the heroine to wear such a skimpy outfit? For Kama's sake, her breasts were about to pop out. At least Samui wore modest clothing, well, as modest as she could be with her large bust, but still, Kimi could at least wear a shirt and not some small bikini skin-tight battlesuit. Finally, after an epic battle with Asagi, Kimi rescued Ichika, and the young couple was celebrating with sex, oh Kami, a sex scene, and this was rated 16 and up. She glanced at Naruto, who looked uncomfortable as the clothes started disappearing on screen. She took notice of his hand on the armrest, laying there temptingly, and Samui decided to make a bold move, or at least bold to Samui, who had never been on a date before. Slowly, she reached for his hand, her heart beating 100 kilometers an hour as her hand gingerly covered his. Her hand seemed so much smaller than his, she noticed, and she nearly retracted her hand when she felt him jump. Thankfully, he relaxed and looked over at her with a confused expression. It soon changed to a wide smile, and she blushed wildly as his hand enclosed around hers. Samui had always heard about the look that guys gave girls when they were interested. She didn't know what it looked like. But she had a suspicion that Naruto was giving her the look, so she leaned against him. Naruto had held her hand possibly 100 times that day, dragging her from place to place, but this time it was different, no frantic pulling or tugging, just holding as if content, and Samui most definitely felt content right now. His thumb made small circles on her palm, he leaned closer to her, her head now rested on his shoulder, he let go of her hand. She nearly panicked, but blushed hard as his arm descended over her shoulder, bringing her close. She relaxed, snuggling into his warmth, and the movie became 1,000 times better in an instant. When she got the chance, she would make sure to thank him. After a night of passionate lovemaking, Kimi and Ichika returned home. Kimi was hailed as the village's true champion, and her and Ichika soon wedded. It was a touching story, but the movie ended on a rather foreboding note, with the scene of thousands of armored creatures marching across a vast desert unopposed. Samui figured the series was setting up for the next installment. And she would be lying if she said she hadn't become a tad bit interested in the adventures of Kimi. Maybe Naruto could even watch the 6th movie with her when it came out. Samui expected it to be rather awkward as they walked out of the theater, but she was pleasantly surprised when Naruto's hand intertwined with her own, blushing, which seemed to be a common theme for today. Samui walked by his side, staying close to him as he lightly gripped her smaller hand. They didn't speak, they really weren't walking in any specific direction, they were just enjoying each other's presence, or at least that was Samui's perception. She glanced at her love interest, taking in his smile and peaceful expression as they moved down the crowded streets. What was he thinking of, she wondered, was he just as happy as her right now? She admired his handsome features, from his bright blue eyes to the unique whisker marks on his cheeks. He must have noticed her staring because he stopped walking and turned to her with a curious expression. Is something wrong, Samui-chan? He asked worryingly, looking at her with those cerulean orbs she recently found herself so fascinated with. She shook her head lightly. Nothing, Naruto, it's just, you are very handsome, Samui answered truthfully and was rewarded with a rare and amusing display of Naruto blushing. Ah, well, thanks, Samui-chan, you're, very pretty. Samui smiled and blushed at his honest comment. Thank you, Naruto. She noticed the sun was beginning to set. Had it really been so long? They started this little adventure at 10 in morning, not long after she arrived. She had been tired before, but the sight of his state of undress more than revitalized her. With the aid of a low-grade soldier pill, she became fully awake for their whole day of touring Konoha. Samui was thankful she was. For the day had been completely amazing, far exceeding what she had expected when she arrived at Konoha. Sadly, it looked as though the day was coming to a close. The sun's about to go down, she said dreadfully. She didn't want the day to end. It'll walk you to your apartment, then, Bachan showed you where it was at, right? Samui laughed at his choice of address for the Hokage. Yes, Hokage-sama kindly showed me the way, just follow me. She gave a little tug on his arm and he followed her dutifully. Maybe the night didn't have to end. It had taken Tsunade quite a while to calm down Shizune after nearly a dozen guarantees that she had not, in fact, defiled Naruto in any way during their night of drunken celebration. Her worrisome apprentice finally let the issue drop, although the manner in which they were discovered by Shizune hinted at some possible sexual behavior between the two. Nothing had happened besides a little too much drinking and, perhaps a bit of groping, if Tsunade's drunken muddled memory served her well. She knew more about Naruto's missing pants than she had led Shizune to believe, but nothing crossing the line happened, just some fun, mixed with alcohol, involving the savior of the world, just some fun. As Tsunade finished the last of her legendary paperwork, the busty Hokage wondered what Naruto thought of the situation, from which she remembered, Naruto was thoroughly enthusiastic when she removed her robe and bra, commenting many times about how huge and perky her bust appeared. She remembered feeling flustered from his honest answer. And the thrill she felt upon hearing such a young and handsome man comment positively of her body, since he was naked during the time of his comments. She plainly saw his reaction to her bare breasts, and her pride soared as she watched him get an erection from the sight of her breasts alone. It made her, a woman in her mid-50s, feel absolutely sexy again, granted. What he had always seen was a henge of her younger self, but Tsunade enjoyed the boast to her ego nonetheless. It was so strange to her, thinking of Naruto as some hot young stud, rather than the brat who frequently called her Bachan. She would be a liar if she said she hadn't snuck glances at him when he wasn't looking for the last year or so. He had matured so much in the years she had known him, in both body and mind, but certainly the body. His time with her teammate Jiraiya, Kami rest his soul, transformed him from a scrawny runt to a muscular young man. The fourth war and the intense training he was required to undergo to defeat Akatsuki and Madara finally cemented his status as a man to be desired by many women. She heard the comments her female staff members made every time he made a trip to her office. It annoyed her that women were looking at him like some piece of meat. Even Shizune, her trusted assistant and apprentice, had been caught more than once taking longer than necessary glances at the blonde hot eye. Tsunade told herself that it was merely her protective instincts kicking in. After all, she viewed Naruto as a sort of younger brother, just like her beloved departed Nawaki, but lately she had begun to view him in a different light. More along the lines of her late lover, Dan. He was young and handsome, she was older and hadn't been with a man in years. It was only natural that she felt something for the knucklehead. Still, it wasn't right. She was old enough to be his mother, Kami. She could imagine Kushina screaming at her from the heavens that her Sachi wasn't an object to be fantasized or thought of in a sexual way. Tsunade had made a promise to herself that she would never act on her desires, but the events of last night and earlier this morning made keeping her promise difficult. Even sober, Naruto still expressed an interest in her body, and that was enough to leave Tsunade burning with desire. She wanted his wonderfully sculpted body pressed flush against her. She wanted his impressive manhood to do things to her that would leave her a quivering mess on her desk. She wanted to feel companionship. Above all, she wanted to feel desired. But then she thought of Sakura. Her youngest apprentice had a large crush on the blonde baka, second only to that Hyuga girl who still couldn't say 2 words in front of him without becoming a blushing schoolgirl prone to fainting. Seeking a physical encounter with Naruto, regardless if there were romantic intentions, would be a betrayal to her apprentice. She knew Sakura was pursuing Naruto, and with time, she was certain the two would have a wonderful relationship, but the thought of Naruto taking Sakura as his girlfriend and lover left Tsunade feeling oddly empty, or was it jealousy? Tsunade hoped it wasn't. It wouldn't bode well for her if she was, Kami forbid, develop romantic feelings for Naruto. The age gap alone meant such a relationship was impossible. Besides, despite an obvious physical attraction, Naruto wouldn't want her. He needed someone younger, around his age, not some old woman wanting to feel young again. He deserved to be happy, and Sakura could make him happy. She just wished things were different, how she would pursue him if she were just a few decades younger. Tsunade-sama. I'm sorry to bother you. Well, speak of the devil, she thought as her younger apprentice stormed into her office. Labored breathing and rapid heartbeat. With flushed cheeks, something's bothering her. She gave Sakura a small smile, putting her pen down. No problem, Sakura, is something wrong? Her apprentice took a moment to gather her breath. Have you seen Naruto, Tsunade-sama? I can't find him anywhere. Look at her, already acting like a worried girlfriend. Tsunade shrugged. Last time I saw him was this morning. So about. She glanced at the clock, her eyes widening as she realized just how much time had passed. 10 hours ago. Wow, time really flies when you're doing paperwork. I won't worry. Naruto took it upon himself to show Kumo's new diplomat around Konoha 10 hours ago. Was Naruto still escorting Samui around Konoha this late? Sakura crossed her arms and gained an angry look. Oh, now Tsunade saw what was going on. He shouldn't still be with her, it's almost 9. Why is that, Sakura? Tsunade asked, prying. Well, he just shouldn't be. It's not right. She tightened her fists. I went by his apartment, he wasn't there. Now that was interesting, Naruto, out at night, with a busty girl from Kumo, oh yeah, Tsunade's imagination was going places with that combination. Did you go by Ichirikus? Naruto treats that ramen stand like a second home, surely they would know something. I went by there earlier, they didn't give me anything, Sakura sighed tiredly, I've looked everywhere for him, I'm running out of ideas. Should I tell her to check Samui's diplomat apartment? No, won't want an international incident, well, then I guess you should call it a night, you must be tired. But Tsunade-sama, I don't want Naruto to be taken advantage of, do you know what I mean? Tsunade laughed. Sakura, has a grown man, and the most powerful shinobi in the world, I doubt he needs you protecting him from women, he can handle himself just fine, she assured, but from the stubborn look on Sakura's face, she failed to acquiesce concerns. I don't trust Samui, Sakura told her flat out. Well, then trust Naruto to make a right decision, truth be told, Tsunade didn't know what the right decision was, Naruto was a healthy young man with no girlfriend, he could do what he wanted with another woman, Tsunade just couldn't guarantee his safety if Sakura found out. Her young apprentice nodded reluctantly. I do trust Naruto, she muttered, crossing her arms, I just don't trust Samui keeping her hands to herself, I barely know her. Tsunade felt some sympathy for the pinkette, she understood Sakura had difficulty expressing her feelings to Naruto, especially after denying him for many years, she knew of Sakura's insecurities and the overwhelming feeling that she didn't deserve the blonde shinobi after rejecting him so harshly years ago. Get some rest, Sakura, I know you must be tired, she took note of the small bags under Sakura's eyes, indicating a lack of much needed sleep, tomorrow, talk with Naruto, I'm sure he'll tell you nothing happened. Maybe you're right, Sakura seemed to contemplate her words, I'll get some sleep, but I'm asking him exactly what happened the moment I see him tomorrow. Sounds good, oh, before you go, I almost forgot, do you happen to have that scroll you and Naruto found in Yuzushio? Yes, actually, I picked it up at Naruto's apartment earlier to do some further reading, Sakura reached into her back pouch, rummaging around the spacious pack until finally producing the mentioned scroll, here it is. I'd like to borrow it, Naruto mentioned it earlier, I'm interested in this supposed island in the Ghost Sea. Sure, here you go, Sakura placed it on her desk, next to Tsunade's diminishing pile of paperwork, have a good night, Tsunade-sama, her apprentice bowed and shunshined out of the office, leaving Tsunade once again alone with her paperwork. Well, I guess I can take a small break from the paperwork, she picked up the scroll and quickly began to scan its contents, and Uzumaki expedition, huh? For the second time in just 2 days, Naruto had awoken in a place other than his apartment, his eyes blinked slowly, adjusting to the bright sunlight coming through a window next to the couch he was lying on, he tried turning to his side to more comfortably rest his head on a pillow his neck was currently crushing, but stopped himself when a weight on his chest. Which he had not noticed until just then, stirred as he attempted to shift his position, he craned his neck to get a better look and was rewarded with the sight of a peacefully snoozing Samui snuggling into his chest, her arms were wrapped around his waist and her head rested gently on his chest. The thought of an incident like the one he experienced with Tsunade just a day ago crossed his mind and briefly caused him to panic, but he calmed as he realized they were both still fully clothed, sighing softly to himself, the blonde recalled the events of last night. When Naruto elected to walk Samui back to her diplomat suite, the young shinobi figured he would leave after dropping her off and bidding her goodnight, unexpectedly, at least to the lovable blonde, Samui invited him inside, explaining that she had yet to truly explore her apartment and wanted to share the experience with him. Naruto agreed to follow her inside, after all. It was a specially designed diplomatic apartment and he was curious as to what it looked like on the inside, located in the financial district of Konoha. Naruto already assumed the suite would be a great deal larger and more refined than his own apartment, but as the diplomat suite came into view, he realized the actual building exceeded his expectations, just from the outside. He could tell the suite consisted of 2 floors, with a balcony on the top floor and carefully trimmed hedges surrounding the sides of the building. He could tell the suite was much more spacious than his tiny apartment. When Samui invited him inside to take a closer look, Naruto immediately agreed. Partly because he was excited to explore the obviously grand suite and partly because he did not want his day with Samui to end. For the better part of 15 minutes, Samui and him explored the suite. The apartment had 5 bedrooms, each fully furnished, 2 lavish bathrooms, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a grand living room with a large flat-screen television and an insanely comfortable couch that dominated a good portion of the living room. After the tour, the two decided to watch a little television while sitting on the couch. It wasn't long before a tired Samui, exhausted from the trip to Konoha and a day of running around the village, fell asleep while resting her head on his shoulder. Soon after that, Naruto's eyes closed, a combination of the long day and the burning of his eyes from the bright television screen. And that was how he ended up being used as a comforter by the beautiful Kunoichi, all innocent, well, relatively so. After spending an amazing day with Samui, he was confused as to what exactly Kumo's new diplomat meant to him. Sure, he knew her before she arrived at Konoha yesterday, but he had only ever thought of Samui in an entirely platonic way a year ago. When he carried her back to Kumo to receive thorough medical treatment, he recognized and appreciated the fact that she was a very smart, capable and beautiful Kunoichi, but after spending a whole day getting to know her better while experiencing all the festivities Konoha had to offer, Naruto wasn't sure how he felt about her at first. He just assumed it was because she was a very attractive young woman. He was a healthy young man, after all, and would have to be downright blind to not recognize her beauty. But Samui was more than just a pretty face, she had a great sense of humor and was an easy person to talk with. Despite the cold exterior most people saw, she was a good person and an excellent Kunoichi, and, sleeping on his chest, with her breasts pressed against his chest and her thighs touching his groin area. Don't think about her breasts, don't think about her breasts. Don't think about her big breasts. Her exposed cleavage looked amazing, smashed against his chest, making her breasts appear even bigger than they already were. They looked wonderful, and the perverted side of him was dying to see them uncovered in all their glory. Still, his rational side explained to him well his deep feelings for his teammate, Sakura. And how much of a betrayal it would be for the feelings he held for her if he decided to act on his perverted desires. Besides, even though Samui and him acted pretty close the day before, it didn't mean the Kumo Kunoichi felt anything for him. Naruto was sure she was just being friendly and sleeping on his chest with her body pressed so wonderfully against him, as he explained before. He was a healthy young man, and his body inevitably reacted to the sensations and thoughts he was experiencing. "Oh great, Naruto, you have a boner." He gently tried to lift Samui off his chest in an attempt to at least alleviate the pressure on his groin that was aiding his current erect state, but gasped for air as she latched tightly back onto his chest and snuggled her face deeper into his shirt. He groaned as his erection became trapped between Samui's luscious thighs. "Ah, damn, it won't go down." He tried to will himself to lose his erection, but the tightness caused by her thighs made that endeavor futile. Coupled with the sight of her breasts nearly spilling out of her shirt, Naruto knew it would be impossible to calm his lower head down, so he once again tried to remove Samui from his chest. He placed his hands on her shoulder and delicately lifted her up. Almost immediately, she stirred from his attempt and he lost his grip on her shoulders. She fell back down on his chest and he groaned as the air was knocked out of him. Naruto's eyes closed from the pain as he attempted to catch his breath. It took him several seconds to steady his breathing, and when he opened his eyes, he found Samui's face mere inches from his own and her eyes wide open. Hi, Samui-chan," he said nervously, painfully aware of the fact his erection was still stuck between her thighs. Honestly, he expected her to hit him or yell at him for being a pervert, but she did something that surprised him. She smiled, but it wasn't a simple smile. No, this smile was downright seductive, framed by her blonde bangs and her blue eyes staring directly at him. Naruto was struck by her beauty, taking in her heart-shaped face as he never had before. Samui. He was cut off as her hands cupped the sides of his face and her lips descended upon his own. His eyes widened as the beautiful woman gently caressed his lips, pressing her body against him tightly while she proceeded to kiss him. It was unexpected, so it left Naruto momentarily dazed, but he reacted swiftly enough, wrapping his arms around her waist and holding her close. He began to kiss back, even as thoughts of Sakura invaded his mind. It felt wonderful, so wonderful that he granted her immediate access when he felt her tongue dance across his lips. Their tongues met. Naruto felt her moan into the kiss as their tongues danced around each other. He felt her thighs rub sensuously against his covered erection, causing him to unintentionally thrust his hardened penis between her thighs. His length grazed her lower region and her hips bucked into his pelvis, sending her in a frenzy even with the layers of clothing separating their most intimate parts. The kiss became more heated as Samui slid along the length of his shaft. His manhood was throbbing madly, and he pushed the intense sensations he was experiencing into the kiss, overtaking her probing tongue and sliding his own tongue into her mouth. He explored her oral orifice, exchanging saliva with the beautiful Kunoichi as her tongue caressed his own. He had kissed several girls before, but they were nothing but simple chaste kisses, none of them compared to the tongue mashing he was currently engaged in with Samui. Her lips felt so soft and supple, and her tongue sent shivers up his spine. Adding in the sensation of her thighs pressing against his erection, and Naruto was in absolute heaven. They held this intense kiss for many minutes until finally their lungs yearned for air. Slowly, Samui pulled away from his lips, yet their tongues remained connected for several more seconds, dancing around each other. Their tongues eventually retreated, however, and they enjoyed a comfortable silence while staring into each other's blue eyes. Their hearts were beating 100 kilometers an hour, they were breathing heavily, and lust coursed through their bodies as their most intimate parts touched, albeit through layers of thick clothes. Naruto's erection continued to throb from between her thighs, the sensitive organ wanting nothing more than to further enjoy the pressure generated by her luscious thighs. His arms tightened around her waist, and she nuzzled her face into his neck. He heard her sigh contentedly as she ran a hand through his hair. "Oh, Naruto," she whispered in his ear, "this is wonderful." He agreed and kissed her softly on her forehead. "Samui-chan." Samui began kissing his neck, laying small kisses on his exposed skin. "Yes, Naruto." Naruto groaned. "Your eyes are driving me crazy." She stopped kissing his neck and gave him a devious grin. "Oh yeah? What if I do this?" She wiggled her hips and was rewarded with the sound of a soft moan escaping his lips and the feeling of his penis throbbing between her thighs. Samui giggled. "Did you just moan?" "No. Guys don't moan." Another quick wiggle, however, proved him wrong, and he failed to hold back a moan as she squeezed her thighs around his manhood. "Ah, you're so mean, Samui-chan. I can feel it through." Naruto thrusted his penis between her thighs, rubbing against her covered lower region and causing her to moan loudly. Naruto grinned. "See? Two can play at that game, Samui-chan." Her response was to kiss him once more. "You drive me crazy, Naruto," she muttered against his mouth, flicking her tongue across his bottom lip. "You know, you're not the first person to tell me that." To be continued. The Uchiha Chronicles, Part 1. He wandered for many months, drifting from town to town without a purpose. He never stayed in one place for longer than a day. He slept and ate and moved on. From time to time, someone would try to start a conversation with him. He was a stranger wandering into villages that sometimes had very little contact with the outside world. It was natural that people would get curious of his intentions of identity. When asked his reason for passing through, he would reply that he was attempting to find himself. When asked who he was, he simply replied that he was the last member of a cursed clan. Most would leave when they realized he wouldn't say more, but some continued to question him until he finally left. He didn't want companionship, he didn't desire conversation, he just wanted to get away, far away from his troubled past. So he went west, far to the west. A month ago, he passed the Land of Wind, the country furthest west in the elemental nations. He avoided Sun altogether. He knew that he was most certainly not welcomed anywhere near the village, even with the support of his best friend, whose word carried a lot of weight since the end of the Fourth War. He entered lands he never heard of. Lands far outside the jurisdiction of shinobi, peaceful lands, at least in ninja terms, with endless forests that put the Land of Fire's great forests to shame, isolated, with sporadic settlements every dozen or so kilometers. This land was truly one of the last frontiers of human civilization. He traveled a dusty road for many months, sleeping on the side of the road when nighttime arrived. He avoided the settlements of these lands. He was a shinobi among a totally civilian population. It would be an injustice for him to destroy the peace these villages maintained. His presence would be an insult to them. He didn't trust himself. His best friend put a lot of faith in him, believing deeply that he held supreme good inside of him, but he sorely doubted such good existed. He held an evil inside of him. His soul was tainted, just as his clan was. The world would be, in his honest opinion, a better place without him. Him and his clan had been nothing but a scar on the world, a plague to peace. His best friend was the light of the world. He was the good it needed, and himself, the dark that preyed on the weak. He took a vow after his actions to never fight again, to never kill. He promised to his best friend and himself that he would never again stand up to bring darkness to the world. He would keep that promise, but the darkness in his heart ached to cause destruction. His eyes, such powerful eyes, yearned for combat, begged him for action, and he knew that he would not be able to fight off their requests for much longer. He walked about a kilometer from the main road, right next to a creek deep in the forests. He glanced around. Good, there was no one around. He didn't want anyone to see the ugliness of his actions. The last thing he wanted was to scar another by exposing him to the gruesome display of his corpse. He positioned the tip of his blade at his stomach, ready to skewer himself and finally rid the world of his evil clan. He had just closed his eyes and prepared his final breath when a scream jolted him from his actions. Sharingan flaring, he dashed into the forest, momentarily forgetting his suicide attempt as the cry for help echoed through the forest. With his speed, he quickly arrived at the scene, and he growled in anger at what he saw. A low-life bandit was attempting to press a young woman against the trunk of a tree. It didn't take a genius to realize his intentions as the bandit, a middle-aged man, began to pull down his trousers. The young woman, tears streaming down her face, was thankfully still fully clothed, so he wasn't too late. Just as the bandit reached to grope her breast, the despicable man found the edge of a sharp blade pressed against his neck. Shaking uncontrollably, he let go of the poor woman, who fumbled to the ground in a panic and moved quickly to the trunk of another tree. The bandit, terrified, turned his head slowly to see Sasuke Uchiha glaring at him intensely with a fully awakened Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and Hybrid Rinnegan. What are you? He stuttered out. Leave, Sasuke said, his Sharingan spinning, or else slit your throat, your choice, you rotten excuse for a human. Personally, he wanted to disembowel the man, even with his recent promise, but he didn't want the terrified young woman to see such bloodshed. Oh okay. Sasuke removed the blade, and the man ran away on shaky legs. Sasuke watched the man leave before discreetly summoning a lower snake summon to kill the man. Once he got a good distance from the area, a new leaf Sasuke may have taken, but he wasn't about to let a rapist live, not on his watch. He turned to the young woman, who was leaning against the trunk of a tree, shaking. Are you alright? Miss? Your eyes are spinning, she said slowly. Sasuke took note of her appearance. She was a brown-haired young woman, possibly around his age, with blue eyes. Sasuke never paid much attention to the opposite sex, but even he could admit that the woman was very attractive. He put those thoughts aside. However, she required help. They tend to do that a lot. Miss, what is your name? She wiped away a stray tear and began to reply. My name is Sasuke-sama. I have eliminated the bandit, his snake summon, Tetsuya informed him as it crawled onto his shoulder. HHHH. Giant snake. The young woman yelled, pointing a finger at Sasuke's shoulder. Don't worry, he won't. Damn, the brunette fainted, collapsing to the ground from the side of his snake summon. He gave an annoyed glance at Tetsuya. Thanks a lot. Sorry, Sasuke-sama. Tetsuya apologized before vanishing in a puff of smoke. Sasuke eyed the unconscious young woman inside. I guess I can't just leave her here with ease. He picked her up bridal style and set off for the main road. He had spotted a village just a few kilometers away. He hoped that it was her village of origin, or at least a trustworthy place to let her rest from the ordeal. So much for staying away from villages. Somehow, he could imagine Naruto giving him that unbearable grin for being such a nice guy. Thanks for watch here, see next video.